evening. My name is Stephanie Macias Arlington. I'm the director of the Joseph Unanue Latino Institute. On behalf of the Latino Institute and our co-sponsoring partners, the Catholic Studies program, we welcome you to today's Charter Week festivities. Yay. So I do wish to recognize a few individuals that have made today's event possible. From Catholic Studies, Dr. Inez Merzaku and Gloria Aruneo. Dr. Inez Merzaku is returning back from Italy from her study abroad course and unfortunately couldn't be with us, but she sends her regards. From our friends at the Immaculate Conception Seminary, Father Miller, Father Brian Needles, thank you for facilitating our introduction to Father Gus today. To the College of Arts and Sciences, thank you Dean Peter Shoemaker, Dr. Diana Alvarez-Amel, Bernadette McVeigh, and today's special guest, Father Gus Puleo. So when Profesora Alvarez-Amel mentioned to me the opportunity to commemorate Charter Week, the university's annual opportunity to reflect on our history, purpose, and Catholic identity, the Latino Institute jumped at the chance. You see, the Latino Institute's founder, Joseph Unanue, and his wife, Carmen Ana, chose to partner with Seton Hall University to support Catholic education and students fulfilling their potential as servant leaders. Their Catholic faith and vision serves as our present-day guide to fulfill two intertwined missions, that of service and scholarship. Today, the Institute continues its legacy through cultural programming designed to build stronger linkages to heritage and academic financial aid. We advance, educate, and transform our students into the next generation of leaders in our global society. What a better way to honor our benefactors and beloved university than celebrating Charter Day today. Earlier today, we enjoyed a luncheon and a Spanish Mass with our lecturer, Father Gus. Now allow me to share more about his background. Reverend Augustus, Gus Puleo, is currently pastor of St. Patrick Parish in Norristown, Pennsylvania, and he's faculty member of Saint Charles Borromeo Seminary. He is recognized as a specialist in Spanish language acquisition and Mariology, the study of Christian theology of the Virgin Mary. Father Gus has taught at several notable universities, including Drexel, LaSalle, University of Buffalo, and Columbia, to name a few. Father Gus joined the faculty of St. Charles in 2008 and teaches advanced Spanish to seminarians and deacons. He has also taught Spanish-speaking deacon candidates and courses in pastoral Spanish, the letters of Paul, and the New Testament. Father Gus holds a PhD from the University of Pennsylvania in Spanish, a master's degree in theology and divinity from Saint Charles Borromeo, a master's in Spanish from Middlebury College, and a bachelor's and master's in linguistics from Georgetown University. We are now here for an exclusive discussion on Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, Our Lady of Guadalupe, a central figure in Latino culture and Catholicism, and whose account dates back to the 16th century, and yet teaches us today that God accepts all people. So today, please help me welcome Father Gus for our
God bless you. Before I begin, I want to thank the Latino Institute, the Department of Catholic Studies, for the invitation to be here with all of you. And everyone's been so nice and kind to me. I feel very much home on the college campus. So the title of the talk is Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, Transcending Borders. The epigraph, let's say, is something that comes out of Philippians. But our citizenship is in heaven, and we eagerly wait a Savior from there, the Lord Jesus Christ. This is an option for prayer at a funeral, at the commitment ceremony at a funeral. And I always select this meaningful quote until there is a just, comprehensive immigration policy implemented for our nation. April 1st, 2014. Just a few feet away from the rusted iron slats of the 30-foot wall along the U.S.-Mexican border, in Nogales, Arizona, Boston Cardinal Sean O'Malley and a dozen other bishops from 3 countries, the United States, Mexico, Guatemala, celebrated Mass. More than 300 people formed a congregation on the American side of the border, and hundreds more participated on the Mexican side. The altar placed on a high stage was partly in the United States and the other half in Mexico. The Diocese of Tucson and the Archdiocese of Hermosillo, Mexico, worked closely to plan this Mass. A choir from Lourdes Catholic High School in Nogales, along with a choir from the parish of Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe in Hermosillo, and members of the Knights of Columbus councils from Arizona were among the volunteers. Of course, Our Lady of Guadalupe was there, as she is at the shrine in Tepeyac, Mexico. She was represented by a statue on both sides of the border. The faithful received Holy Communion pressed into hands that stretched between the slats from one side of the border to the other, illustrating, as one teenage member of the choir put it, we're all one community. After Mass, a procession of bishops climbed the Border Patrol access road alongside the fence and placed 2 wreaths beside a cross on the fence to remember those who had died crossing the border. All people, no matter their legal status, are called to the covenant established by Jesus Christ, without any exception or exclusion. Our Lady of Guadalupe, as witnessed by many on both sides of the border, reaches out to the entire world to protect and care for her children. Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe is not merely a record of a past event. The apparition of Our Lady in December of 1531 on the hill of Tepeyac, in what is today Mexico City, is a life source of the present and a hidden energy of the future. Our Lady is the bridge, I repeat, bridge and not wall, for all to a stable, healthy, and holy life. Our Lady's apparition to Juan Diego takes us back to the spiritual dawn of the Church in Las Americas. In these miraculous occurrences, we can see God's plan for all of us on this continent. Our Lady did not just appear for the Mexican people, but rather her mission was national, continental, and even universal. In her words to San Juan Diego at the first apparition, December 9, 1531, in the language Nahuatl, is found in Nican Mopoa, is the name of the text. Our Lady told him, quote, I truly am your merciful mother and the mother of all who dwell in the land and to all mankind. St. Pope John Paul II, on January 22nd, 1999, named Our Lady of Guadalupe the patroness of America, and called the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe on the tilma the Marian heart of America, subsequently raising her feast day, December 12th, to the rank of a solemnity throughout America. Kind of funny, in the rest of the world and in Spanish, there's only 6 continents, where Americans say there are 7, because the 6th, America, is just one continent. There's not a north and a south. So that's why John Paul II calls her the patroness, la emperatriz, the empress of the Americas, putting it all together. The appearance of Our Lady of Guadalupe had a decisive effect on the evangelization of the Americas. And a mere 10 years after her appearance in 1531, 10 million people were converted to Catholicism. Her influence today continues as it overflows the boundaries and borders of Mexico, spreading her guidance and her self-image imprinted on the tilma to the entire continent. America, which historically is still a melting pot of peoples, seen in the mestiza face of the Virgin, which is dark, shows that God's divine plan is that the nations of the Americas are meant to form one continent and a new civilization with new people, one founded on Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe. John Paul II insisted that Our Lady is venerated as Queen of the Americas, not just in Mexico, Central, South America, but also in North America as well. We notice she's clearly a brown-skinned woman, a mestiza, a mixture of European and indigenous blood. She came dressed in the garment of indigenous people, and spoke to Juan Diego in his own native language, Oahu. Essentially, she's in the vanguard of a new humanity, as she reminds us that beyond the color of our skin or the countries where we come from, we all are brothers and sisters in Christ. And La Morenita, the dark-skinned lady, as our mother. She's the icon of unity of all people, creating one family of God out of the world's nations and races, peoples and languages. We often speak of Our Lady of Guadalupe as an apparition, but in reality, it was much more an encuentro, an encounter, or a friendly meeting between two people. It's very similar to the encuentros or the appearances of the risen Lord with the apostles. There's a very close and intimate conversation between La Morenita and Juan Diego. Like many of the great prophets of Israel, Juan Diego did not consider himself worthy of the gift of being the chosen one to see and speak to Our Lady of Guadalupe. And like the little children who saw and spoke with Our Lady at Lourdes and Fatima, Juan Diego was 53 years old. A widower, a poor Indian. In fact, weeks before his canonization on July 31st, 2002, there was an outrageous attack against Juan Diego, stating that he never really existed, but was merely a legend. If so, if there's no Juan Diego, then there's no Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe. However, church documents were found showing the date of birth and, more importantly, the baptism of Juan Diego, thereby proving his existence. Juan Diego treats the lady with great respect, as he calls her hija mía, and also la más desamparada, the most abandoned. Now, Guadalupe appears as the Indian mother of God and a child to the abandoned mestizo people. Through her, there's a new dignity and new evangelization, as she shows a different conquest, a caring and spiritual calling of the indigenous people to God. It's a compassionate, quote, conquering triumph, not through violence or threats of hell, but through maternal love. John Paul II wrote in his apostolic letter on the dignity of women, unless one looks to the Mother of God, it is impossible to understand the mystery of the Church, her reality, her essential vitality. The Church finds a model in Mary, who in her yes, her fiat, of course, to God, became the place where God and humanity met. The Basilica of Tefayet is the place where the Virgin Mary and Juan Diego met. This is a place where the poor, the forgotten, the outcasts meet God. The mestiza, is in a constant state of having to define himself or herself in the context of a society or societies that has ignored or kept them invisible. For a brutally conquered people, she restores the dignity, the humanity, and their place in history. Only divine intervention could have turned around the destruction in the conquerors. She also comes from the region of light, as she restores dignity to a life of the people. In the appearances of Our Lady to Juan Diego, we see God's action on the side of the poor. In his encounter with the religious powers of the time, the Bishop Zamarraga was the bishop at the time who Juan Diego went to see. Juan Diego is the protagonist, representing all who are marginalized. Similarly, today, Guadalupe comes and stands among the poor, the outcasts, the strangers, the immigrants, to reflect on who they are: mothers, fathers, men, women, children, morenos, mestizos. He gives them a place in the world that negates them or forces them to live in the shadows. We are all called to recognize who we are, dignified children of God with unlimited potential for doing good. 1531, Juan Diego was fascinated by what he saw. Like Guadalupe appeared in perfect beauty. Her clothes radiated like the sun. And it seems that the very sun radiates out of her. However, she is both radically unlike the Indian divinities, as she is not distant or unapproachable, but similar to them in other ways. The sun was the Nahuatl symbol for God, the God through whom one lives. However, La Guadalupe is even greater than this God, for she covers the sun while not extinguishing it. You can see the picture. She also stands on the moon, the other manifestation of the deity, but does not crush it. So Our Lady of Guadalupe does not destroy the natives' gods, nor deny the Catholic God, but presents something more humanizing to both Christians and indigenous people. She does not look like any of the other natives' gods, since she is so human and radiates heaven. The Virgin eclipsed the sun and moon, but not in a menacing way, but in doing so she brings focus to her own womb, where is kept the true God. She's not a Christian or Indian statue, but a flesh and blood woman with a kind and pleasant voice that speaks the language of her people. The treasure for us, of course, is the tilma. You should see it. You should go to Mexico City and see it if you can. Beyond the miraculous Castilian roses blooming in the winter that were brought to the Bishop Zumárraga by Juan Diego. When the flowers bloomed, they were flowers that are from Spain, not Mexico. And of course the bishop was Spanish from Castilla. So that's part of the miracle, that they weren't Mexican. And it was winter too. Our Lady leaves us another miracle. The gift of her living image miraculously painted on the cloth of Juan Diego's cape made of native cactus fibers. Many scientists have studied the tilma and have concluded there is no explanation for its many qualities. The cloth has not deteriorated, even though it should have lasted only 40 years. You do the math. It's almost 500 years old. The cloth is not suitable for painting. There are no brush marks, and scientists cannot understand from where the paint comes. The tilma is a living and enduring presence. The image of Our Lady reveals that she's of the highest nobility, for is dressed in that blue-green of divinity. Her mantle reflects the different constellations that occurred the night of her appearance in 1531. However, the tilma also reveals that she's of the earth. If you look at her dress, the color of the earth, and she's adorned with many flowers, indicating the flourishing of new humanity. The Guadalupe connects heaven with earth. She's divine, but also seen as an equal. The example is how she addressed and spoke personally to Juan Diego. Her face radiates concern and compassion for those in need. She's not sitting as a superior would, but is standing, calling all of us, the lowly, the poor, the abandoned, the immigrants, to rise from their stooped humiliations. Due to her living presence on the tilma, Our Lady continues to make herself present to all who come to her. Our Lady of Guadalupe shows a depth and likeliness in her face and clothing that is reminiscent of European techniques and styles also. On the other hand, the two-dimensional gold designs over her tunic are similar to her colors on other Indian codices. She has a compassionate face of humility as she gazes downward. You can see she gazes downward in prayer. While her imperial colored clothing indicate a heavenly queen, her clothes, her posture indicates that there is someone greater than she, someone to whom she prays. Her eyes reflect the presence of Juan Diego and Bishop Zumárraga. Recently, in the 1970s, well-known eye doctors, oculists, studied the eyes of Our Lady and could not understand how they still reflect, as our eyes do when looking, the encounter between Juan Diego and the bishop. If you look at the eyes, you can see both of them there. Also, her presence brings forth the experience of God as she wears a brooch with a bare cross. The bare cross points to her son's victory over death as she underscores and acknowledges the sufferings of her children with conquest, plagues, violence, and now immigration. God's mission through Mary is, in Psalm 71, rescue the poor who are crying out. The power of the crucified and risen Christ is manifested in our ability to have a good relationship with others. There's a need to take risks, to let certain cultural expressions of our being in church flourish, so that we as a church can be renewed. We are called on a personal level to welcome the stranger, as found in Exodus 23:9. You shall not oppress an alien, since you were once aliens yourself in the land of Egypt. To show how immigrants have enriched our faith, you are all welcome to our celebration of Lady of Guadalupe. December 12th. Starts at 2 a.m. You gotta run to get a seat. The place is jam-packed at 2 a.m. It lasts all night. Songs, mariachis, poems, dance. The celebration lasts until midnight with a huge procession with parishioners carrying statues of Our Lady and Juan Diego, a band playing religious songs, dancers, and at the end, which I've never seen before, but at my parish, 100 trucks, each decorated with blinking lights and music, shining on huge portraits of Our Lady of Guadalupe, with music blaring out. The Blessed Mother, being a witness to the passion of our Lord, makes the Church a prophetic voice that denounces violence and cruelty and consoles the excluded by spreading hope and establishing God's kingdom on earth. Mary, our Mother, has an intimate understanding of suffering, homelessness, and uncertainty. We must remember the Virgin Mary was a young woman on the rough Galilean hills, pregnant with a seemingly implausible story for her marriage to Saint Joseph, who gave birth to her child in the cold in a stable far from home. She was wrapped in swaddling clothes. She wrapped him in swaddling clothes and laid him in a manger because there was no room for them in the inn, and hunted by Herod. Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. As a result, the Holy Family was forced to flee to a neighboring country. Like most immigrants from Mexico, Central and South America, many persons in Latin America are unwillingly on the move. These persons often do not choose to leave, but are driven to their land by violence and hunger, leaving behind family and friends. In many cases, the departure is filled with hope, but for many, it's just a case of survival. The new arrivals to the States are trying to survive the Herods of today. Those who impose their strong power increase their wealth, often with drugs, and see no problem in shedding innocent blood. When there are no room for any of these immigrants at the various inns, the immigrants, like the Holy Family, flee. But through the intercession of La Guadalupe, they know that being God's children, they are forever afforded citizenship in heaven. Mexicans fleeing such violent cities as Acapulco and Guerrero cross the border to find a secure, stable, and peaceful life. Those persons from El Salvador and Honduras are often more likely to immigrate due to violence rather than economic reasons. Another title given to Our Lady of Guadalupe is Tonantzin, an Nahuatl word meaning our dear mother, or colloquially, our mama. The continued use of this title points to how the message of the Virgin was received in the lives of the Mexican Christians. In fact, we see how she represents a personal motherhood for each child. To come as one's mother, to come in the most personal way. The mother is a continual role, not merely defined by the fact of giving birth, by a relationship of love and care, evidence in Our Lady of Guadalupe's relationship with Juan Diego. Juan Bernardino, the uncle of Juan Diego, and later by her image on the tilma. She was declared to be the mother of Juan Diego. You famous, if you go to Mexico City, you'll see this written. No estoy yo aquí, que soy tu madre. Am I, who are your mother, not here? She removed any doubt of the care and love of dignity of indigenous people. They were and are children of God and entitled to respect. Christian social doctrine underscores the continual renewal of social structures to provide greater respect for the dignity of people. Pope Benedict noted that love, caritas, will always prove necessary, even in the most just society. Whoever wants to eliminate love is preparing to eliminate man. There will always be suffering which cries out for consolation and help. There will always be loneliness. There will always be situations of material need where help in the form of concrete love of neighbor is indispensable. That's from Deus Caritas Est. The Virgin Mary is the merciful mother of all nations. In the Nikan Mopoa, the Blessed Mother urges us to search for her place and their confidence in her, since she's the mother of all. In interpreting the various signs on the tilma, it is obvious that La Virgen de Guadalupe is pregnant. This black ribbon shows she's pregnant. And those who know Spanish, they always describe a pregnant woman as ella está encinta. That's that that's wrapped around her. She's pregnant. In addition, our mother defines her role as the one who will bear our laments and remedy and cure all of our miseries, misfortunes, and sorrows. She's not just the mother of certain Mexicans, but also the ever-present listening mother of each and every inhabitant of all the nations. And especially, we see her in the March for Life in the nation's capital, our nation's capital, and signs of picture of her are carried in posters everywhere. She is held in high esteem as Our Lady of Life. I have to describe for you in a moment the year 2014. It was the best of times and the worst. During that year, in my parish, I baptized 267 Hispanic children. Of those 267 baptized, I buried 5 one-day-old infants, children of parents without papers, without insurance. That year, due to the lack of proper health care for mothers and their babies, that's what happened. Even though I've never been married, I learned more about pregnancy than most biological fathers, since I had to resolve not to bury any more infants. The National Center of Health Statistics at the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention reveals that infant mortality rate in the United States is 6 infant deaths per 1,000 live births. I almost had that number in my parish. I had to do something. I remember what Pope Francis said at the beginning of his papacy. What the church needs today is the ability to heal wounds and to warm the hearts of the faithful. It needs nearness, proximity. I see the church as a field hospital. Heal the wounds, and you have to start from the ground up. Most hospitals had left the town where my parish is located due to increasing financial difficulties in serving the poor. However, along with the Institute of Clinical Bioethics at St. Joe's University and Mercy Health System, the Mercy Sisters, both were instrumental in starting, funding, and implementing a program, and medical residents, seminarians, and dentists. The program is called the Programa Médica Guadalupana. Since its inception in 2014, it's a free medical program for people without insurance that has grown, not only providing care, pre- and postnatal care for mothers and infants, but also dental, vision, screening for blood pressure, diabetes, and other illnesses for adults. Doctors and dentists have freely offered their time and experience. Recently, the Mexican consulate and immigration lawyers have joined our program to help immigrants. I didn't go looking, they found me. Holy Spirit. Eventually, all parishioners, my parishioners, will be trained to do the screenings and work where now university students are doing the work. University students are pre-med students. Eventually, my promotores de la salud, health promoters. These programs based on a model from the third world that brought to us by the Institute of Clinical Bioethics of St. Joe's. Persons are being empowered and being taught to serve and help their community in dealing with health issues. The healing power of Our Lady of Guadalupe started with the uncle of Juan Diego, Juan Bernardino, and it continues today. He was cured. Well, Lady Guadalupe says, Juan Diego, where are you going? He says, I'm going to see my uncle who's dying. I have to find a priest. And she said, he's cured, you don't have to go. Do her intercession. Many miracles in my parish are attributed to her intercession. As of last year and this year, I have not had to bury any infants. Gracias a Dios y la intercesión de la Virgen de Guadalupe. Of course, this unique and special program that's being studied, implemented by other churches, is under the guise and protection of Our Lady of Guadalupe. In Deuteronomy, we learn that God protects the orphans, the widows, befriends the aliens, feeding and clothing them. But we too much help out by befriending the aliens as we once were aliens also. Our Lady of Guadalupe is present to us in her sadness and joy in the tilma. It's difficult to explain the meaning of the presence of Guadalupe in the tilma. It's a true and enduring presence. It's like a collective wound that allows all of us to pass through it to be reborn into something new. Through the presence and intercession of Our Lady of Guadalupe, persons are called to conversion from which robs them of their fullness of life, from which enslaves them and keeps them from being free children of God. Conversion is a great equalizer, as it calls for everyone in life and freedom to be a child of God. Conversion brings a flourishing of one which makes him authentically human in the image and likeness of God. One such court, I've talked about this with Stephanie, one such case is a woman who had a 4.0 in high school in AP courses. 5 of them. Maybe you took 1. High SAT course, but no papers. Not going to college. Through the help of prayers and the intercession of Our Lady of Guadalupe, support from our family, teachers, and students in our parish, the woman now is studying at the University of Pennsylvania on a full scholarship. Something unheard of for a doctor. I have about 200 wonderful young people who are living in limbo, DACA. These are the dreamers, whose dreams right now seem deferred. These persons were brought to the United States as children by undocumented parents or family members. They are not legal through no fault of their own. The dreamers have lived in this country for almost their entire lives. Essentially, they are Americans who only lack legal recognition. If they get deported, can't even speak Spanish very well. It's like deporting some of you. President Obama in 2012 had the executive order created DACA, Deferred Action for Children of Rivals, which affords these young people a renewable 2-year period of deferred action from deportation and a work permit. September 2017, President Trump announced that he would end DACA in March of 2018. They're still in limbo. We know what happened. Dreamers show us how broken our immigration system is. Dreamers are the most motivated and successful of all groups of our society. 97% of these hardworking persons are working or studying, even they do not qualify for government loans or grants. U.S. businesses report that DACA recipients are vital to our economic future. 800 executives from all sectors of our economy have agreed that DACA use contributed more than $460 billion to our economy and paid $24 billion in taxes. So we should be encouraging these young people, not creating obstacles for them. These young people are willing to share their God-given talents with the nation, keep their families together, and make their own contributions to American dream. Almost 85% of all Americans agree that we should allow these young people to stay in the United States. As a former university professor, I know about higher education in the United States. Since the playing field is not level, we started another program on my parish, an SAT program. My students, children of immigrants without papers, are at a definite disadvantage. They, meaning the parents, do not even know about higher education in the United States, not even how to fill out something as easy as an application to a school, or even find it on the internet. You must remember that their parents have never gone to college. Many didn't even graduate from high school. Many American students take courses paid by their parents to prepare them for SAT and help filing out and writing college essays. My students' parents don't even speak English. So the program was started with volunteers. I have a wonderful university professor of English who donates her time every week to teach English. I have a retired high school math teacher who guides the students through trig and calculus. Each year we accept about 10 students who start 9th grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. They make tonight, Wednesday night, from 7 to 8:30. The course is for 4 years. They don't pay anything, as we are funded by grants, as the students study and take the SAT every year. We also provide assistance in helping them visit universities, provide help for their application processes. To date, we've had great success, because it's been about 5 years now. We have students studying at University of Pennsylvania, Penn State, Drexel, Westchester. Maybe we can even get some to apply to Seton Hall. Plug. Of course, the SAT room is fully equipped with computers, a whiteboard, also a huge picture of Our Lady of Guadalupe, who in our help and guidance. Each class begins, Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia. One of the most unusual details of the apparition is the request of Our Lady for a church in Tepeyac. There are other churches in the area, as Juan Diego was accustomed to visit for catechism. However, this church that she asked for was to be special, since for Our Lady it would be a place of intercession and help those in various troubles, miseries, and pains. The purpose of Tepeyac Chapel points to the continuing presence of Christ. This is what she said. I want very much that they build my sacred little house here, in which I will show him, Jesus. I will exalt him on making him manifest. I will give him to all people in my personal love. Him that is my compassionate gaze. Him that is my help. Him that is my salvation. So the purpose of the church is made clear as a place where Christ is made present, a meeting place for God and mankind. The church is not a place of remembrance, like a memorial, but a place where Christ is constantly present as a person. The continuing presence is the true and lasting miracle and enables Christ's power to be known to us through the witness of others in the life of Christ's body, which is the church. Guadalupe's motherhood is not the only motherhood given to us. Both Mary and the church are mothers in a spiritual sense, and each complement the other. John Paul II explained the two mothers, the church and Mary, are both essential to Christian life. It can be said that one is a more objective motherhood and the other a more interior. The motherhood of the church is linked to the preaching of the gospel and the sacraments. The church manifests God's presence, as you know, in all the sacraments. In Nahuatl, the word for sacrament suggests the reality of meeting Christ through the sacraments. You all know in Latin and English, the word sacrament is derived from the word meaning sacros, holy or sacred. The Nahuatl word speaks more of the person. The word is tetzaltelice, which is made up of 3 words. Celia, to receive, tel, things, te, someone or person. So in Nahuatl, the word means to receive something which is also someone. Christ. Our Lady of Guadalupe proposed a new way of life for the Aztec. She requested that Tepeyac Church be built at the bottom of a hill, a humble root, a place easily accessible to all. From there, our mother provides guidance, protection, and a home in which we're invited to enter into a new life with Christ as our mother. For this reason, the church is the most visited Marian shrine in all the world. Guadalupe's clothes reveal her desire to bring us closer to God. You can see the flower-like in her thing there. It's called Aleptel, and Our Lady's garment represents a new civilization. Joining this with the call to build a church points to a new beginning, the start of a new perspective in life and in the world. The flowers cluster on her clothes are unique and distinguish themselves from others. They're all different, but they all have a similar model, continuing to maintain the shape. Some of the flowers have more blossoms, others more leaves, others more buds. Some are on the garment, others are on her sleeve. But they all have the same resemblance, not of a civilization, but of the same civilization with the same divine source without losing their uniqueness and independence. All of these flowers are located around the central glyph, this 4-petal flower which shows divinity. Of course, that is Jesus Christ. My challenge to all of you is that you build a church in your heart, one that recognizes the face of Jesus in oneself and others. Christ's sacrifice is made present always in the Eucharist, which all of you receive as we all move from being individuals to a unity, from union to communion. And from there we look beyond ourselves and our borders. Juan Diego's lasting contribution was to build a church in Tepeyac. You remember in the 1100s, St. Francis of Assisi was instructed by Christ, rebuild my church. St. Francis rebuilt a small chapel in Assisi and had a mission as messenger of the re-evangelization of Christians in Europe. Juan Diego, like St. Francis, was a messenger of the first-time evangelization of those who didn't know Christ in the New World. Living at the Hermitage with the image of Guadalupe after the appearances, Juan Diego found himself with many pilgrims coming to see the Tilma. Many came with problems and worries. As Mary asked Juan Diego to intercede for her to bring her desire to the spiritual father within the church, Bishop Zumarraga, so many pilgrims came and still come to Juan Diego to intercede for them. And those there who come give thanks to Our Lady of Guadalupe for favors received and still come, asking for help as they can receive at the foot of her image, her greatest gift. Right under there is the altar, and the greatest gift is her Son in the Eucharist. Communion includes the reality both of being loved and loving others in turn, especially the downtrodden, the orphans, the widows, the unborn, and the immigrants. Mother Teresa wishes her charity in my convent. That proves we're poor. Would often hold up a child's hand and recite Matthew 25:40. Whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Then she would take the child's finger one by one and repeat, you did it to me. Within the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus tells us to invite the stranger in. And if you see a sick person of one in prison, you go and visit them. Deportation is a very glaring and frightening for my parishioners. When arrested, a person without papers is sent from a local prison to a state prison that is about 3 hours away. Families are separated, as often the father is arrested and the mother and children are left at home. It's interesting that when arrested, the family member comes to me. The church is very different from them than it is for us here. The church is their refuge. And ask for a letter for immigration. Interesting enough, this letter is very helpful. As a judge and lawyer told me, I kept writing these letters and I said, they didn't do anything. And it confirms that the person is a hardworking, upstanding, honest person who attends church regularly. According to church records, which are taken as legal documents in a way, we can verify the number of years a person has been there in the United States by the sacraments that they or their children receive. In my book, I can tell them how long they've been here, what they have done, or how long the children have been in catechism class. At times, due to these letters, some persons are set free, thank God, and return home without being processed or deported, since they might have had no criminal record or that they are the sole support of a family. I'm just going to tell you of one case, a terrible case. A woman, Mexican woman, she came across the border. She married a Mexican who's legal. So they're married in the church and civilly. They have a child. He's about 4, with Down syndrome. Has all, because he's born in the United States, all the services kick in. So taking care of her well. He's cute. He's such a good little boy. But because she came across the border and gave a fake name, it's fraud. So they said, we're going to deport you. She went to get legalization. She went to the courthouse and they wanted to take her. And I said, but you're married to an American. No matter. You came across, gave a fake name. She gave a fake name because the guy, the coyote, who brings them across, said, if you get caught, say this name. You wouldn't know. You probably wouldn't say it too. You wouldn't know. And so, this is what they told her. You will be deported. You can come back in 10 years. And you can not just necessarily come back, but you can sign up for a visa to come back. The child can't go because of the services. So what is it? The child's going to be left with the dad who works and nobody else. So she said, Father, what should I do? I shouldn't say this at 13. I said, move. Change your house. Change your location. Terrible. At the Basilica of Our Lady of Guadalupe, John Paul II suggested that the future of our country and the continent depends on this. He said this in Mexico. We must rouse the consciences of men and women with the gospel in order to highlight their sublime vocation as children of God. This will inspire them to build a better America. As a matter of urgency, we must stir up a new springtime of holiness on the continent so that action and contemplation will go hand in hand. Our mother, as with Juan Diego Oils, asked us to build a church where Jesus resides, in our hearts, in our lives, in our dreams, in our hopes. I challenge each and every one of you to heed the words of Jesus in the Gospel of Matthew. I was hungry, you gave me to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me to drink. A stranger, you invited me. I needed clothes, you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me. The encounter with the living Christ is the path to conversion, communion, and solidarity. The risen Christ is present and active in our world today, especially in the poor, the stranger, the immigrant, the refugee. Again, I refer to Mother Teresa, Calcutta, who always began any type of writing on her papers with these letters, LDM. Cross, she always wrote LDM, which Laudator Deo Mariisque, which means to Jesus through Mary. Each one of you has great talents. So I ask Mary, in this case, Nuestra Señora de Guadalupe, to guide you in finding a concrete way to help others, especially the lonely, the abandoned, the stranger, those without papers, since it is God's work that we're called to do, since Jesus is always there with them. Our greatest sign of support is our prayers. Dios te salve Maria, help those without papers living in the shadows. The Lord is with you. Allow Jesus to change the hearts and minds of those who do not welcome the stranger. Bendita tú eres entre todas las mujeres. Allow la Guadalupe to help the dreamers. And blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Our Lord, help us create and implement a just immigration system respecting the dignity of all. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Allow us to show love, compassion to the stranger, as Jesus taught us. Que viva la Guadalupe!
Que viva!
Que viva Cristo Rey!
Que viva!
Muchísimas gracias. I don't know if you have any questions. Comments, I don't care.
Father, when you say they don't have their papers, what you're referring to is they're undocumented.
Exactly, they don't have papers. Exactly. I don't like the other words they use, so like people without papers or undocumented, as you said. I don't like the other words people are using. Alien is such a, it's like a movie. It's like aliens from outer space, right? It's a movie word to me. Yeah, correct. Exactly right. My church is it's a Mexican church, mostly Mexican. There's some other people, like Cubans are in there, some Puerto Ricans, but it's mostly Mexican. And I would say most of the population does not have papers.
How much?
I would say 80-some% don't have papers. It's a lot. And so you have families that can be divided because the kids, so I have about 200 DACA students. DACA, that's a lot. This is really funny. The day that was implemented, the DACA, I was the most popular man in Philadelphia. The lawyers came, they came and knocked. At the end of the day, my secretary was laughing on the floor because they would come, the lawyers came and they said, Father, we're going to have a free conference with the kids. We're going to tell them about DACA. And then I said, what are you going to do? And they said, we're going to take them to our offices. And I said, what are you going to do in your offices? I said, are you going to charge these kids? And they said, yes. I said, get out of here now. Because if they think, if you would read the whole document about DACA, at the very end it says, you don't need a lawyer to hand in these papers. So they were charging the kids, right? $2,000. It was ridiculous. Listen, let me say, I have nothing against lawyers, because you heard when I do this program about the medical, lawyers come in, and they come in free. You know, I'm not condemning all lawyers. I have wonderful lawyers, immigration lawyers, who help me. So what I did with the DACA kids, I said, fill out your papers. And so after Mass, on the Sunday, they all came downstairs, and I had 4 lawyers right here, not charging them, and they would just review. I said, oh, you didn't fill out this part, fill out this, fill out that. They were just helping them, but they didn't do the work. The people did the work. Yeah.
Father, in your opinion, what do you see as the solution?
Oh, here's my solution. My humble solution. I agree that the border should be secure. That's not a problem. I didn't say militarized. I said secure. I don't think you need a wall. It sounds like the communists in Berlin. Right? And I think secure the borders. And then all the people here should somehow have amnesty. I know you're going to shoot me. But amnesty doesn't come without work. What I mean by this is, the people who came across without, as it would say, without correct legal entrance, could do community service. Our place needs a lot of, meaning our country needs a lot of community service. So people will be given a community service, and be nothing on the record. It'll just be community service. Because people want them to pay somehow. That's it, community service. What's wrong with that? But no felonies, no misdemeanors, just community service, and that's it. No record. Yeah.
Thank you for your lecture.
Thank you.
As someone who has gone to Mexico many times and has traveled in, I'm just surprised that there are not more people crossing over because of the circumstances. So obviously it's not only the legal situation in the United States or the economic ramifications, it is something of an international.
Exactly,
Is the
exactly
church
right.
doing anything, because in all of this, the role of the Mexican authorities is rather shameful, to be honest, because what they do with their immigrants from Central America,
Exactly.
with terrible situations, is quite.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
So this is an international program.
Yes.
It's not only the United States having to deal with
Italy.
this.
Italy. Remember the first place that Pope Francis went to was Lampedusa, an island where the Africans were coming across and dying coming across the straits. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. It's funny though. I can tell you this funny story that happened. It was in November of last year. This guy said to me, one of my parishioners, he said, Father, I'm being deported, but I'm going to go voluntarily. You can do that, right? So he said, I'm going to go voluntarily. This was November. And he says, but I'll be here for Easter. I said, don't come. And so at Easter, he brought me a present from Mexico. And I said, how'd you get across? He said, it was easier than ever. I don't know. It depends where you come across. And the horror stories are, can you imagine, you have a 2 or 3-year-old kid, and you're carrying the kid across the border, and the cops are there, or the police are there, and you have to say to the kid, yeah, kids are, right? Don't say a word or we're going to get caught. Right? They'll tell you those stories. Terrible stories.
Is the church addressing this in any way? Because it is an international, we're seeing it in a
Well,
national.
the Pope has told us to address it. The Bishops' Council has addressed it too. But I think we have to do it more on a local level too, right? To do this. They're here, I got to take care of them. They're my parishioners. So that's what my job is, I think. And it's our job, all of us. They're already here. So we need to take care of them. And there are different ways to do it. like I said, I have the Missionaries of Charity. I have two things. If you need hot food, you go to the nuns next door, the convent. If you don't have food at home, I have a cupboard, right? And so you come and I give you enough food for like a week. It's like boxed, macaroni and cheese or canned good, stuff that won't go bad. So that's what we're called to do, to help any way we can. So I challenge you to do something. You guys are real talented. I know you guys. You're very talented. I know college kids. Talented. So you should somehow, help those among us.
I have a last
Sure.
historical question. You mentioned the sort of there's signs in
Exactly.
the image of pre-Hispanic.
Exactly.
Besides the cloths and the place where she appeared, is there anything else concerning the cult of the Reverend?
Yeah, well, if you study it more, what happened was that place where it occurred was a place where there was a lot of sacrifice, human sacrifice, and then so what happens? This is the new life, right? This is life, birth. So she flips it on its head, and this is a place of life now instead of death. And that's why she's carried in January, the March for Life. Yeah. Just a place of life.
Father, what appears as horns on each side, that's the moon, right?
Yes. Yes, that's the moon. Yeah, exactly. And the angel horn. They're saying that this might have been added later.
The angel.
The angel might have been added later to the tilma. You should go. It hangs from the ceiling, and you can't get to it. There's like a big safe behind it in the sacristy. It's one of those safes you have to turn because they have to keep it. Because there was, in the 1920s, there was a bomb placed in the shrine. And the bomb exploded right there. What happens, the remnant you see of the bombing is that there's a steel crucifix, and it's bent like this, backwards from the bombing. But thank God nothing happened to the team. Not a miracle, I think, I said.
Father, you mentioned just in passing that America was a place where people came to. I've been thinking about this. I'm Irish, actually. And what I was thinking just last night about this, that, the Irish can go on to England without any papers.
Right.
They need don't even need a passport.
Right.
At the sea. And then I was thinking, in the old days, it must have been similar here. I mean, I don't know the whole history of immigration. I wanted to stay Irish, so I'm still Irish. But do you know about the history when it became like this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say something. I think I read up on something like that because I did study for my LSATs. I don't know if it was like this article I read, and technically, in a sense, you could say from the Constitution that deportation is technically like illegal, but they do it anyway.
Right.
Because it's not necessarily specified on deportations,
Right.
but there's
Right.
like rules behind it, and I think that's like one of the big problems as it is already with the whole focus on, you can't just
Correct.
send people back that are here paying bills and
Correct.
that they have,
Correct.
lives and stuff like that. Because when you really think about it, what is the morality of splitting families up?
Exactly. That's
What
a
does,
very good point.
what does that family have to do with you taking a shower or you going to work? I just think that it's crazy how some people can grow up and think so much of someone that they've never seen before, someone that they've never met, who's living a life just like they are, but care so much about what they do. It doesn't matter what happens to these people because that has nothing to do with what you're doing. These people aren't halting you from doing anything. So that's why, when that whole thing that was going on with Seton Hall last semester
Right.
and SGA, and we were trying to sign, I think, like a thing on the DACA program here, and then some senators abstained and stuff because they didn't want to sign it. But I've never really gotten to a conversation with somebody who give me reasons for why you feel that people who live their life as an American is open to all the American culture as you.
Right.
Why would you want them to go back? Like that's
Right, and they're very productive. They're very productive, good citizens on top of it.
I don't get it, you
Yeah,
know,
you're
because I was never the type of person to be like, oh my gosh, like
Right.
they're taking jobs for whatever. Like, stop being lazy. Like, you can go out and get jobs too.
Yeah.
That's why they're always determined. That's why, you know, their
Yeah,
families are always
exactly.
tight. They
Exactly.
they thrive. They work hard at
Why
it.
they open
you know?
businesses. My place is jammed. The town I live in jammed with Mexican businesses.
Exactly.
About your very good. About your question, it's kind of interesting. I had a lot of Chicano students in Colombia, right? And they gave me this shirt too, a T-shirt, and it says really funny because it's American history that most people don't understand. It says, "We didn't cross the border crossed us," right? Because you know the United States is heavily Spanish, right? The western part, the southern part was heavily Spanish.
Florida as well.
Exactly. And it's kind of funny when you do American history. The first European settlement in the United States was not Jamestown, everybody. It was St. Augustine, Florida. It was Spanish. It was 1588.
Santa Elena.
Right? So I think it's a question of knowing your history. But that's the border crossed us. But I want to tell you something about Ireland that's really funny. The name of my church is St. Patrick's, right? It was an Irish immigrant parish, right? So about a week ago, there was a big parade, Irish parade, right? Because we celebrate St. Patrick's Day. And so we have a float, a wonderful float. And on the float are about 100 Mexican kids, right? And then we have a dance group, a wonderful dance group. So we all went to the parade, and we won first place at the Irish parade. I said, only in America. Isn't that funny? Yeah. But it's good. It's good. It was a place. The way they introduced us was it's a place of immigrants, starting with the Irish and then now the Spanish.
Father, I heard that, I read somewhere, I think, that Our Lady of Guadalupe, when her, the apparition was, she was like an Aztec princess.
Yes, exactly. That's what they thought she looked like. Yeah. The funny thing about the apparition is this, that is really funny. When Juan Diego went to the Bishop Spanish, right, from Spain, and he said, what's the lady's name? He said the name in Nahuatl. And the bishop heard Guadalupe. Only because there's a Lady of Guadalupe in Spain. So he said, it's Our Lady of Guadalupe. But it's not really the correct name. Well, how are you going to look at it, right? But that's the name we use, is Guadalupe. But it was really a Mexican name, a Nahuatl name that he said. The lady said she was Transcending.
Transcending.
Yeah. And he said, oh, Guadalupe.
That's right, because in Spanish they have a big devotion to Our Lady.
It's in southern Spain, a big devotion to Guadalupe. So he said it was her. Nice.
And the flowers that bloomed, of course, those were
Castilian roses.
Castilian. They only bloom
And only
at a certain
Castilian.
time
In Spain. Exactly. That's the other miracle. Yeah. So there's a couple of miracles within the miracle. Yeah. It's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful story. There's great devotion for all countries, not just Mexico, for Lady of Guadalupe. Very good. Lord be with you.
And with you.
May Almighty God bless you, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Muchísimas gracias.